to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode 2 in my latest deep dive series, The Tragic Death of Sandra Birchmore. And if you tuned into my episode 1, we talked about Sandra, a little bit about her life and how she was part of this post program, this explorers program, they call it, where the youth would come in and get trained by actual law enforcement and learn ways of the law and law enforcement and things like that. So it was really a great opportunity for these gentlemen to groom underage girls if that was what they wanted to do. And that is what this episode is about. Stoughton police officers who groomed Sandra Birchmore. So let me find my mouse here. All right, so if you look at the screen here, I created a image for you. So Matthew Farwell, William Farwell, Joshua Heel, and Robert Devine. These are all the individuals we're going to be talking about. I wanted to give you a visual. I can come back to this frequently if you need to. So William Farwell is going to be our key player here, and these other three are still in the picture, but not quite as much. But we're going to look at all four of these individuals and talk about how they had potentially something to do with Sandra Birchmore and the grooming of whether they had anything to do with her death or not. That's a different story. But um, some may or may not have done something. As we watched here, let me switch back to the screen here. As we watched in the last episode, in episode 1, we watched the video of the surveillance footage that was in her apartment building, and we saw her go in and out of the building a couple times that day. And then the last time she was inside, she never came back out, and there was a gentleman who came in first, and he has a mask on, and he's a big, tall guy, and it is believed that it is Matthew Farwell. He actually admits to going there and seeing her. So, and we're supposed to believe that he broke up with her. Apparently, that's why he went there, was to break up with her officially, even though I thought they were already broken up. But he was supposed to break up with her, and that was that. And then his wife had a baby the next day. They had problems. And you can see why he might have had some motivation to get rid of Sandra and her baby that she was claiming was his. So there's a lot of motivation on his end why he wouldn't want her to still be around. William Farwell, the brother of Matthew Farwell, both officers, both head of the or teachers in the post or explorers program. Robert Devine, on the other hand, he ran the program, and Joshua Heel is he's not a Stoughton officer, but he is on the fringe of the officers. So we'll get into that as he is like an animal control officer or something. So all right, so we will begin. I wanted to start this episode. Let me shrink myself. And let's begin with this. So, first of all, why is that not lining up here? Oops. All right, hold on one second. This bothers me. Sorry, had to line up my background better. All right, so here. So this is a news brief that I'm just going to play a little bit about. So this past weekend, as I'm recording this, this is July 22nd, probably going to air on the 23rd, but as I'm recording this, the previous weekend was a standout in Stoughton for Sandra Birchmore, trying to bring more attention to this case, especially now that an independent forensic pathologist has ruled her death to be a homicide and not by her own hands, which is what the original medical report says. So here is just a brief little portion of the standout people going and supporting the justice for Sandra Birchmore.
Right now, first at 6, a group of people over in Stoughton today calling for justice for Sandra Birchmore. Good evening, I'm Darren Botello. So the young woman was pregnant when she was found dead in her apartment. This was back in 2021. Her death was ruled a suicide back then, but then the Boston Globe reported a prominent pathologist is calling it a homicide.
We're trying to get her case out there more so the medical examiner will open her case up more to take another look. People who live in this county need to start asking questions because you don't want this to happen to your child and it not be investigated.
Our Aaron Logan joins us live in Stoughton tonight. And Aaron, like we were saying before, what can you tell us in the latest in this case?
Well, Darren, that homicide revelation has prompted a lot of new developments in this case, as you would expect. People want answers. There were a group of them out here today raising awareness about the twists and turns into this investigation. Here's some video from earlier today. You can see them standing around here in a very visible section of Stoughton across from Town Hall. They spoke with people who aren't familiar with this death investigation. Birchmore was just 3 months pregnant when she was found dead. A year later, the Stoughton police chief said a lengthy investigation uncovered 3 officers had an inappropriate relationship with Birchmore. One of them started when she was underage while taking part in the department's Youth Explorers program. The officers denied the accusations. And as we mentioned, the Boston Globe reported in June that her family hired a prominent pathologist who concluded her death was a homicide, not a suicide. Now lawyers representing the officers are suing the Attorney General's office, asking that case files be released as it prepares to fight a civil wrongful death suit filed by Sandra Birchmore's estate. The judge gave the AG's office 30 days to provide more information about the requested documents, which would be on or about August 12th. These new shocking developments are raising a lot of questions. Now, Melissa Berry is the person who organized this afternoon's event. She says all these people you saw out here with her today will be back. They want justice for Sandra Birchmore and her unborn child. We're live in Stoughton. Aaron Logan, NBC 10 Boston.
So that's awesome that these standouts do happen on occasion, but it's great that um, I think this can get a lot more media attention now that it's in the same surrounding towns as the Karen Reed case. So I think it's going to get a whole lot more attention thanks to that. At least that's a good thing. So I wanted to next show you the actual press conference from the police chief of Stoughton, Chief Donna McNamara, and she's going to talk about the investigation. So this is after probably like a year after Sandra was found dead. Um, it took a while before they started investigating the officers, or officially, anyways, announced it. So here we go.
In order to be fully transparent, I am here publicly to disclose the results of an internal affairs investigation ordered by me, which uncovered serious misconduct on the part of former Stoughton police officers. What I'm about to brief you on is something deeply troubling to me as a human being and as a police chief. On February 4th, 2021, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore was found deceased in her apartment in Canton. I'm not here today to talk about the subsequent investigation into Ms. Birchmore's death. Her death was investigated by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. What I am here to talk about today is her life and how she was failed by, manipulated by, and used by people of authority that she admired and trusted right up until her final days. Ms. Birchmore was a vulnerable person who had one constant in her life since childhood: her unwavering admiration of police officers, of those serving the military, people in uniform, people with oaths and duties to protect and serve. The admiration led her to form relationships with men who were willing to take advantage of her. The media has previously reported about Ms. Birchmore and her relationship with former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell. On February 5th, 2021, the day after Ms. Birchmore's death, I ordered Deputy Chief Brian Holmes to lead a full and complete internal investigation to determine
Whoops. I was muted because my dog was walking and making lots of noise on the hardwood. What was I saying? It's interesting that she initiated an investigation the very next day. So did she have suspicions? Did she think there might be something going on? Or was it just that this whole thing brought it to light and uh, the suspiciousness of the situation is what triggered her? What do you guys think?
Determine what, if any, misconduct was committed by members of the Stoughton Police Department. The death of Miss Birchmore and the subsequent inquiries into her life and death revealed a deeply disturbing pattern of behavior toward her. I'm here today because it is my duty, a duty that I take very seriously, to report to our community on the findings of a nearly 19-month-long, complex, and resource-intensive investigation.
So it took 9 months to investigate the individuals that could have been involved in Birchmore's loss of life. And I want to point out that this was a press conference done in September of 2022. So Sandra was found February 4th, 2021. So this is over a year and a half later, just after, several months. She says 19 months. So we do have some time here in between when we found Sandra and when this press conference is taking place. So just want to let you know.
This is my first and earliest opportunity to speak about this investigation, which has just finished and has been reviewed by counsel as recently as yesterday. The investigation, in which Deputy Chief employed the service of numerous outside private investigators and subject matter experts, has resulted in the following findings. 3 former members of the Stoughton Police Department, William Farwell, Matthew Farwell, and Robert Devine, were identified as the subjects of the Stoughton Police Department Internal Affairs case number 21-1-IA. The sustained finding involving Matthew Farwell were the following. Matthew Farwell, in violation of the Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The sustained finding involving William Farwell are the following. William Farwell, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer, failed to conform to laws, violated data entry policies, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The sustained finding of Robert Devine were the following. Robert Devine, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The facts of this case, after an attentive and complete investigation, are as follows. In 2010, Miss Birchmore, then age 13, entered the Stoughton Police Department Explorer program. It was there as a child that she met Matthew Farwell, an instructor in that program. The evidence demonstrates that Matthew Farwell began an inappropriate relationship with her when she was 15 and he was 27. The investigation uncovered.
He was 27, she was 15. That's a huge age difference.
Many hundreds of digital messages and explicit exchanges between Matthew Farwell and Miss Birchmore over the course of several years. The investigation continued from there. Evidence discovered determined that at least 3 Stoughton police officers, who were all known to each other, including Matthew Farwell, his twin brother William Farwell, had inappropriate relations with Miss Birchmore. The investigation showed that William Farwell, in addition to having multiple inappropriate physical encounters with Miss Birchmore, exchanged explicit messages and photographs with Miss Birchmore while he was on duty. The evidence suggests that William Farwell also, at the very least, attempted to introduce Miss Birchmore to other men. The evidence further showed that two others engaged in inappropriate relations with this young woman. Robert Devine, a former deputy chief of the Stoughton Police Department who had been previously demoted to patrol officer for abusing his power, and an individual who is now a police officer in another jurisdiction.
That other individual is Joshua Heel, who we will talk about. He is now an officer at another district, like she said.
Investigation discovered that Matthew Farwell exploited Miss Birchmore, a young woman who was 13 when she met him, until Matthew Farwell decided to end the relationship on February 1st, 2021. According to Farwell, he went to her apartment to call off the relationship and engaged in what Matthew Farwell later called a pretty nasty argument. Miss Birchmore was found dead days later. Our investigation revealed this misconduct goes back even further. Devine was part of an after-school program at Stoughton Middle School, where he and other officers were in charge of several students without supervision from members of the school district. The investigation determined that Devine had inappropriate contact with a female student in that program. Robert Devine began overseeing the Stoughton Police Department Explorer program approximately 20 years ago. When he took over, he changed the program from a traditionally scouting program to a paramilitary style program that taught aspects of policing to youth participants. Both William and Matthew Farwell were youth participants in the Explorer program under Devine. And the Farwell brothers would later take part in that same program as instructors years later, which would put them all on a course to meet Sandra Birchmore. All three men, the Farwell brothers and Devine, violated their oaths of office and should never have the privilege of serving any community as a police officer.
I agree. There was a comment here. So this is the Young Jerks stream. I couldn't find this full press conference anywhere, so I had to hijack their stream. So sorry, Young Jerks. Love you guys. You're awesome. Go give them a subscribe. They've been covering the Sandra Birchmore case for a while on their channel, and if you want to get more Sandra Birchmore info, I would recommend going there. All right, so what I was going to say is that there was a pop-up like, oh my gosh, 20 years, there's got to be more kids. And that's the one thing. Like, we know that they were doing it to Sandra, but how many other kids was this happening to? They seek out the kids that Sandra didn't have a good, solid home structure. And, they seek that out, these predators. And that's exactly what they are. They prey on their victims, and it's disgusting.
Through a sustained and deliberate combination of lies, deceit, and treachery, they violated the policies and the core values of the Stoughton Police Department, not to mention human decency. All three men have resigned from the Stoughton Police Department, and the conclusion of our investigation has been shared with a police chief in another community, where a fourth man associated with this investigation is currently employed. Our investigation also uncovered inappropriate communication between Miss Birchmore and a military recruiter. And we are in the process of notifying the appropriate chain of command of our findings.
There was an article I debated reading, but then I thought of going with this press conference instead. But there was an article that the let me see if I can find it here. I think I saved it. Birchmore, where are you? this one. They basically, no, it's not that one. They basically passed her around like a toy, is what this article was saying, if I can find it. Yeah, 3 former Stoughton officers passed Sandra Birchmore around like she was a toy, lawyers say, which just breaks my heart. But it's true. I just wanted to bring that phraseology to your attention because ugh, I thought it was gross. But I mean, it paints a picture, doesn't it? Paints a picture of how they treated her, little respect that they had for her, and uh, she deserves so much more. She really did. And these children go out and do these things in their communities to make themselves better adults, and then this happens to them. The people that you're supposed to trust. You wouldn't think leaving officers alone with a bunch of middle school kids would be anything, but then there was some inappropriate relations with this Robert Devine. What the hell? Disgusting. Should trust the police.
In years prior, a story like this would have ended here, or perhaps even earlier. All 3 employees have resigned, and without criminal charges, no further actions would have been taken by a police department. Not today. For decades, police chiefs in Massachusetts have called upon the legislature to create a statewide certification program, and most critical in this moment, a decertification program. We finally have one. The creation of the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Post Commission makes this announcement possible today. The investigation recommends, and I am today announcing the following actions. I have notified the Post Commission of the finding against all 3 former employees, Devine and the Farwell brothers. The Stoughton Police Department recommends, without delay, their certification to serve as police officers be permanently revoked.
Hell yeah.
I've recommended to post that all 3 individuals be immediately placed in the National Decertification Index.
Heck yeah.
Ensuring
Heck yeah, Chief McNamara. I mean, this is great. This is great because, like she said, in most towns, they would sweep this under the rug. You're not my problem anymore. And then that cop goes to some other town and they do it there. And then they get all these accolades like, oh, they started this young youth explorers program, this guy. Yeah, except he did it with ulterior motives in mind.
they never serve as police officers anywhere. The Stoughton
Good.
Police Department submitted a copy of the investigative report to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Additionally, the Stoughton Police Department Explorer Program, which has not operated for many years, has been formally disbanded. We take an oath to protect and serve our community and its people. You are held to a higher standard. These men violated their oaths, and they are unfit to serve as police officers. I stand before you today as a civil servant who is heartbroken and incensed by what has transpired, and who pledges to that this chapter in the Stoughton Police Department and the town of Stoughton is over. It must never repeat. The revolving door is closed. A person who wears a badge in this community will work to earn back the trust of our citizens. We will be trained and retrained on the meaning and the importance of our oath. Anyone who violates that sacred responsibility will be held accountable. I believe in lawful, fair, and impartial policing. And I believe in police officers. I believe in the police officers and the people that work at the Stoughton Police Department today. The men and women of this agency are good, hardworking people driven by their values more than just a set of rules. I can tell you that they share in my anger and outrage. Management and labor may not always agree on everything in the workplace, but when it comes to the things that matter most, our moral compasses could not be more aligned. This has been a long investigation involving nearly 100,000 pages of cell phone records, text messages, more than a dozen interviews, several outside experts, and countless hours were spent by Deputy Chief Holmes, who oversaw this complex and draining work. He did an extraordinary job under very difficult circumstances, pulling on every thread until the investigation reached its natural conclusion. Deputy Chief Holmes is to be commended for his work, and I can say, upon reviewing and accepting the results of his investigation, that the scope of this problem in our agency has been identified and pulled out by the roots. The police officers who serve this community are here for the right reasons and wish to serve Stoughton selflessly and with dignity. Please hold us to our word. Thank you for your time, attention, and understanding, and I will do my best to answer any questions.
Chief, did you find any evidence of statutory rape, Chief?
Good.
Could this lead to criminal charges?
We have turned the investigative report over to the district attorney's office, and it's under their review.
So that is a possibility.
I can't answer for the district attorney. I'd refer that.
So it's going to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, which were the ones who were supposed to be investigating Sandra Birchmore's homicide in the first place, I thought. But yet, well, that was Canton PD, but it went to Norfolk County to potentially prosecute or not, but they didn't because it's cops and they're covering for the cops. So I don't think any charges are going to be occurring unless there's more pressure from the public and maybe even pressure from the feds, because I guarantee the feds were part of did some investigating into this. Sorry, dog barking. All right, so anyways, she's going to answer questions here. I guess we'll listen.
Back to them.
Speed it up a little.
If there was any sort of statutory rape.
Yes, the district, we referred everything to them. The internal affairs investigation that we conducted was that of internal affairs. And that entire report has been turned over to the district attorney's office.
How did you get to the deputy chief level? I'm sure there's a lot of vetting. Was there any accountability for the process? And how did this go on in the Explorer program so long?
So the Explorer program, he was a deputy chief many years ago, and I was not the chief at that time. I refer that back to the previous administration.
Chief, you're clearly very upset about this. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on how you feel as a chief and as a woman about what has happened here?
I am outraged, and I'm trying to look at this as a human being, not just as a woman. And anyone, whether they are a woman or a man, is just as outraged when they read this. And that is regardless.
How do you expect people to be behind this department when you have this? You have previous investigations that have looked very badly on this department.
We have to show up and do our job. Transparency will be part of what we do moving forward. Transparency breeds corrective behaviors, and that's what we will do. We will show up, we will be here, and we will work very hard to earn the trust back from our community.
You mentioned at least 3 officers, What about any belief that some officers you couldn't necessarily prove it on, who might still be in the department? You would wonder how many other people would know about this in this department.
So we have done a very complex and intensive investigation, and we have identified the 3 officers that we know and the 4th from another community. But if there are other members that come forward and file a complaint, we will investigate that as exhaustively as we did this last investigation.
Nobody else has known about this and just said, I don't want to get involved.
First I became aware of it was when I was contacted by the Massachusetts State Police.
Chief, there's a 4th officer, and you also mentioned a military recruiter. So is there actually a 5th person? Just to clarify.
There's inappropriate communications between a recruiter, so that would be a 5th person.
So it's a 5th person. So there's an officer in that department has been made aware, and then the military recruiter where he works, they've been made
The officer where he works, they have been made aware, and we're in the process of notifying the chain of command in the military.
Do you know what the, do you know the genesis of her sort of interest in military and police? Is it some sort of history in her family that would have, sort of made her very interested?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you heard back from post? What is the, do you know what the process will be?
They've been notified, they've been given a copy of the investigation, and we've made our request.
That fourth officer was at a local Massachusetts department?
Yes,
Questions are so hard to hear. I'm just gonna edit here. But anyways, so I think she did the right thing. I think it might have been difficult to press charges. Well, no. How is it difficult? I mean, they could still press charges for statutory R and for SAing a child, a minor, for these individuals. So I don't know why criminal charges were not ever processed yet. But then again, that is up to Michael Morrissey in the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, and he's the one that's trying to get Karen Reed on John O'Keefe. We know that she is factually innocent. So up next, I wanted to let me get my whoops. Hold on. My notes over here. All right, so I wanted to next just kind of go through each individual. Hold on one second. I need to readjust my seat. All right, so a little better. I've readjusted. My hips hurt after sitting for so long. All right, so we are going to talk now. I'm going to go through each one of these individuals that we've talked about. So we're going to be talking about Matthew Farwell first. This is his image. I just like to, I'm a visual person and I like to know who I'm talking about there. So that is Matthew Farwell. All right, so Matthew G. Farwell, September 1998, Matthew and William Farwell joined Police Explorers program. They were 12 years old. Farwell brothers were known to have disciplinary issues while attending school. Okay, so they're already there's some issues there going on. In 2003, Robert Devine brought in former explorers Matthew Farwell and his twin brother William as guest instructors. So they were in the program back when they were 12, starting in 1988, and then they came back as guest instructors for the program. I believe that they stayed on. Yeah, they were hired later. All right, so later that year, William Farwell was designated the rank of lieutenant within the program. So William Farwell was designated as the lieutenant of this Explorer program. So that's, giving him rank there, giving him even more power over these minors, these children. Parents, pay attention where your kids are. Trust the people that are with them at all times, or be really protective. Don't trust them, really. I mean, you should make sure that you trust the people, is what I was trying to say. But if you don't trust the people, then keep an eye on them. All right, so 2008, Matthew Farwell was hired by the Wellesley, I think I'm saying that right, Wellesley Police Department. He received several commendations in Wellesley PD, including one for performing CPR on a man who collapsed while working out at a local gym. So Matthew Farwell saved a guy with CPR. Whoop-de-doo. Doesn't make up for his sins there. All right, so prior to becoming a police officer, Matthew Farwell and William Farwell allegedly impersonated police officers and pulled over cars as teenagers, which was exercising an abuse of the trust of authority that accompanies the role of police officers, although Devine has previously denied any such knowledge of that behavior as per the PD investigation report. So the boys, they were a bit of troublemakers back when they were kids, and they were impersonating police officers and pulling people over. Robert Devine says, I have no knowledge of that in his police reports or into this investigation, but we can't verify. You would think that that would be on their record. You would think a police officer would know that, but what do I know? All right, so however, such a lack of knowledge as described by the same report would be impossible as Devine was the head of the program, was familiar with both Matthew and William Farwell, and sat on the hiring board for Matthew Farwell in 2012. Matthew Farwell was employed as a police officer for the Stoughton Police Department in the beginning of March 2012. Sandra Birchmore, 23, when she lost her life, first met former police officer Matthew Farwell as part of the Youth Explorers program in 2010 when she was 13. Matthew Farwell had intimate relations with Sandra Birchmore beginning in 2013 when she was 15 years old and he was 27, which is considered statutory R under Massachusetts law. You're not an adult until you're at least 16, which in my opinion is still too young. I think you need to be 18 to be an adult. That's what it is in Illinois, but Massachusetts apparently not. All right, Farwell, 36, was a detective, former patrolman, union president, and a married father. So by the time he was 26, he became a detective. He was a union president. All right, so at the time of her death, he was 36. He was a detective, a former patrolman, a union president, and a married father expecting a baby. I think it was baby number 3 even. He was 26 at the time when the essay was occurring, according to the prosecutors. Who's prosecuting him? I don't know why it says at the time when prosecutors say the essay began. That's weird. All right, September 2014, William Matthew, twin brother, received an offer of employment for the position of patrol officer. He also received an appointment to the Massachusetts State Police and attended MSP Recruit Academy. Matthew Farwell's twin brother, William Farwell, and Officer Robert Devine were the other 2 Stoughton officers named in an internal investigation report commissioned by Stoughton Police. And as we know, Chief McNamara instituted it the very next day. Evidence uncovered in the investigation found that William Farwell had engaged in multiple inappropriate physical encounters with Birchmore and had sent explicit messages and photos to the girl while he was on duty. The investigation found that Matthew exploited Miss Birchmore when she was very young. According to McNamara, February 1st, 2021, Matthew Farwell, hold on. All right, so we know February 1st, 2021, Matthew Farwell came to see Sandra. Following day, February 2nd, 2021, at Newton Wellesley Hospital in Newton, Massachusetts, Michelle Farwell, wife to Matthew Farwell, gave birth to their 3rd child at 9:25 in the morning. It's such a coincidence that Sandra ends up losing her life on February 1st, February 2nd, Matthew Farwell welcomes his 3rd child into the world. Very next day. Odd timing, don't you think? Birchmore was found with her life lost on February 4th, so she wasn't found until days later. This was 3 days after Matthew Farwell was the last one who saw her alive. And he had told friends that she was pregnant with she had told friends that she was pregnant with Matthew Farwell's child. Matthew Farwell denied that the baby was his, and he was the last to see her alive. Farwell told troopers he visited Birchmore's apartment on the evening of February 1st, 2021, telling her that he wasn't the father of the baby, according to records. Birchmore was upset. Farwell told the troopers, but she didn't make any comments about taking herself out. Matt said that he was straightforward in his conversation with her and told her that it was all over and he was blocking her from all forms of communication. So we're supposed to believe that she just up and took herself out after he broke up with her and said he wasn't going to talk to her anymore. Even though she was on her phone constantly and texting people and oversharing too much information about herself. That was one of the things that people said about her. So she was an oversharer. She told too many details about her personal life. Surveillance footage from Birchmore's apartment complex showed Farwell entering her apartment building and then exiting 28 minutes later, state police records show. And we watched that in episode 1. I'll do a video. I'll release it just as like its own separate video as well. And put that in the folder playlist. Sorry. Where was I? Yeah, so he was in the building for 28 minutes. On February 6th, 2021, Matthew Farwell was interviewed. He stated that sometime early in 2020, he began a physical relationship with Sandra, but we know that that's not true. He was in a relationship with her for over 10 years, about 10 years. He said that he was intoxicated one night and ended up meeting up with her and having relations. Matt said that he maybe had relations with her 2 to 3 times since last year. He said that the last time they had relations was the end of October 2020. Matt said that sometime in December 2020, Sandra told him that she was pregnant and he was the father. Matt said that he was confident the last time that he had relations with her and that the timeline didn't add up based on her expected due date in September. He was adamant that he is not the father of the unborn child that Sandra was carrying at the time of her loss of life. And I don't know if we have any details on DNA, if that was ever done or not on the baby. Monday, February 1st, 2021, he went to Sandra's apartment in Canton. He said that he asked her if he could come by, and she said no problem, and he intended on breaking everything off with Sandra. So this is the night that he goes over there. Matt said that he told Sandra that she was crazy and it was not his child. Okay. He said that Sandra told him that he was a dick. Matt said that he was straightforward in his conversation with her and told her that it was all over and he was blocking her from all forms of communication. Matt said he kept telling Sandra that there is no way that he was the father based on her timeline. Sorry, we're having issues with the dog and they're dogs and they're all antsy and not sitting still. So I think I calmed them down for a minute. So Matt said that he kept telling Sandra that there is no way that he's the father based on her timeline. He said that he kept calm and was not trying to incite a fight. Sandra was upset, but she did not make any kind of statements at all. It was about taking herself out. It was pretty nasty argument, but they weren't too loud, and when he left, Sandra was standing in the kitchen when he walked out, according to Matthew Farwell. William Farwell has been put on military leave, was later informed that he was being placed on paid administrative leave, and according to the town manager. So Matthew Farwell did become decertified March 1st, 2023. Matt Farwell then later became a commercial driver and has a trucking business in Easton, apparently, Mississippi. All right, so the decertification letter. Let's take a look at this. So this is a decertification order in the matter of Matthew Farwell. the respondent, Matthew Farwell, has entered into a voluntary decertification agreement under which he has agreed to the permanent revocation of his certification as a law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, beginning on the date of approval of the agreement of the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Trainings Commission and the entry of his decertification in the National Decertification Index, the NDI. As further conditions of the agreement, the respondent has waived all rights to challenge his current status of not satisfied and to contest in this or any other administrative or judicial proceeding to which the Commission is or may be a party the factual findings, conclusions of law, terms, and conditions, and other provisions contained in the agreement. So he has no right to contest it or challenge it in any way. Failure of the respondent to abide by the terms and the conditions of the agreement shall result in the agreement becoming void. It may also result in the Commission initiating adjudicatory proceedings and seeking discipline against the respondent based on any ground supported by the evidence obtained in a preliminary inquiry, whether or not it was covered in the agreement. So accordingly, it is hereby ordered that for the reasons stated in the agreement, A, the respondent's certification is hereby permanently revoked. B, the respondent shall not seek or hold employment by any law enforcement agency in any capacity, shall be ineligible for admission to police schools or academies, and shall not seek renewal of his certification as a law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And C, the executive director shall take the necessary steps to publish the respondent's name and decertification status in the NDI and any publicly available lists and databases published by the Commission. Damn. That's pretty cut and dry. You are no longer an officer of the law. Get out of here, pretty much. So that was Matthew Farwell. Next, we're going to talk about William Farwell. He's going to overlap a bit with Matthew. As you could see, I mean, they're brothers, so their stories overlap a little bit. But let's move on to William Farwell. So, same thing in when they were 12 in 1998, him and his brother became, they joined this Explorers Youth Program. Later, they were brought in to teach. They were also considered to have some disciplinary issues when they were younger. In 2008, Billy, as he also goes by, joined the U.S. Army. In 2003, Robert Devine brought in former explorers Matthew Farwell and his twin brother William as guest instructors. Later that year, William was designated as the lieutenant within this Explorer program. Billy has volunteered with the Stoughton Police Explorers program with which he grew up. He has assisted Stoughton Police Executive Officer Robert Devine with the running of the annual academy, bringing in Army EOD equipment so the kids could try on a bomb suit or drive one of the robots. Interesting. Devine said all three were in the very first Explorers class 11 years ago. It means a lot to have one of the men in our department. They grew up right before my eyes. If we played even a small part in their success, I'm proud of that. This makes me wonder if Devine groomed the Farwell brothers. Since he knew them since they were 11, was he doing things to them when they were young? Was he teaching them things that they could be doing when they were young that they weren't aware of at the time? You know what I'm saying? Were they getting essayed by or groomed or whatever by Divine? Was he somehow a part of that? I don't know, back then with those boys. It could explain why the Farwell brothers might have had some disciplinary issues and might have been a little been so ready to do what they did to Sandra. Right, so September 6th, 2011, William Farwell applied to the PD, but he was bypassed for employment. December 9th, later that year, William, aka Billy, served full time with the Massachusetts National Guard and was deployed overseas to Kosovo. He was a U.S. Army Explosive Ordnance Team Leader. So that must be what that AO whatever is. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I don't, no idea. EOD. Nope. I don't know what it is then. Explosive something? Where were we? Why am I so lost? Okay, yeah, EO team leader. I don't know. Anyways, prior to becoming a police officer, William Farwell allegedly impersonated officers. We read about that. Sandra Birchmore first met William Farwell as part of the Youth Explorers program in 2010 when she was 13. William Farwell had physical relations with a member of the Stoughton police with Sandra beginning in 2013. I don't know why it's written like this. When she was 15 years old and he was 27. So same time frame when William and Matthew both started seeing Sandra. September 2014, William received an offer of employment for the position of patrol officer. He also received an appointment to the Massachusetts State Police and attended MSP Recruit Academy. In 2018, Sandra approached William Farwell with her interest in joining the Army. Farwell put her in touch with an Army recruiter. This is that military recruiter that Chief McNamara was talking about. Billy said that Sandra got into the Army but eventually got kicked out during boot camp. February 1st, 2021, Matthew Farwell came to see Sandra. We read all that. Birchmore was found no longer alive February 4th, 2021, 3 days after Matthew Farwell was the last one to see her. Farwell told troopers he visited Birchmore's apartment on that evening, telling them that he wasn't the father. Okay, we saw the surveillance. What does Billy say here? February 11th, 2021 at 4:01 p.m., Trooper Matt Dunn interviewed William Billy Farwell, Matthew's twin brother, in the parking lot of Cobb's Corner in Stoughton. Billy said that he heard Sandra passed away on Friday. Billy said that he first met Sandra about 10 years ago when Sandra was a police explorer in Stoughton and Billy was a guest instructor. The Police Explorer program is a junior academy program for high school aged kids, exposing them to the different facets of law enforcement. Billy said that he had not seen Sandra in a very long time, probably since the Explorers program. Do we believe that? Billy became a Stoughton police officer in 2017. In 2018, Billy saw Sandra while he was working a paid detail in Stoughton. Billy said that Sandra remembered him, but he didn't really remember her that well. Okay. Billy said that Sandra wanted to get into the Army and asked if he had any contacts. Billy, who still serves in the military, helped her get in contact with recruiters to get into the Army. Billy said that Sandra got into the Army but eventually got kicked out during boot camp. Billy said that Sandra started constantly contacting him. Billy said that the last time he was in contact with Sandra was about 2 weeks ago via email. Sandra told Billy that she had been accepted to nursing school. Billy said that he had a physical relationship with Sandra going back about 2 years. So none of them want to make it go back any further because then she wouldn't have been an adult. So they're making her 21 by the time, when this whole thing starts, when we all know now she was 13. Billy said that in 2020 he had been with her physically maybe 2 to 3 times. Oh, so that's the same excuse that Matthew gave. Same thing. They both said, oh, yeah, I didn't have relations with her until 2 years ago when she was 21 and she was an adult. And also, it was only 2 or 3 times. That's all. same thing. They both say the same thing. Did they coordinate? I mean, you think? All right, so Billy said that the last time they were together with was sometime in December of 2020. Sandra told Billy that she was pregnant and that the father was his brother Matt. Billy said he knew that he didn't get her pregnant. How would Billy know that Matt didn't get her pregnant? In what planet was he there watching his brother 24/7? All right, so Matthew Farwell's twin brother William and Officer Robert Devine were the other two Stoughton officers named in the thing. Okay. Um, Evidence uncovered in the investigation found that William Farwell had engaged in multiple inappropriate physical encounters with Birchmore and had sent explicit messages and photos to the girl while he was on duty. William made inappropriate cell phone exchanges with Birchmore while on duty, according to the findings, and reportedly introduced her to others. William Farwell William Farwell, something of encouraging, was alleged to be encouraging Birchmore to secretly, he encouraged Birchmore to secretly record her encounters with others and send them to him on his phone through video or photos. One photo sent by Birchmore to William on August 16th depicted the male genitalia of an unnamed Stoughton officer, according to post records, which refer to Birchmore by her initials. William Farwell was aware that Birchmore believed she was pregnant with Matthew Farwell's child and that Devine was having relations with her also. William Farwell has been put on military leave, was later informed that he was being placed on paid administrative leave. William resigned from the department August 1st, 2022, and began working the same day for the Transportation Security Administration of Baltimore Washington International Airport. These people should be in prison and not living their lives working somewhere else. But I applaud Chief McNamara for decertifying them because that usually doesn't even happen. This all gets swept under the rug. By bringing it to light, she's helping in the process of making things right. And hopefully, the next step is now we know that an independent forensic pathologist found it to be a homicide, so it can be reopened as a homicide potentially. And potentially some criminal charges could take place for her loss of life. As for the SA charges, these officers should be doing time for those, in my opinion. But we're not there yet. All right, so he was decertified March 1st, 2023. There's a picture, that's him, I think. Left, Matt Farwell. Oh, middle is William. William's in the middle. And then I don't know who the other guy is. And there's a video of him. I'm not going to play it, but it's a video of him on this website. He's just talking about his operations wherever he is. I don't care about military stuff. But anyways, that's William Farwell. I'm going to skip to Joshua Heel. I'm going to skip over Robert Devine for right now. I'm going to go to Joshua Heel and talk about him. He is the one pictured right here. So he's the animal control officer or the other officer that's in another district that Chief McNamara was talking about. So here we go. Josh Heel graduated from Plymouth Police Academy. Before joining the Abington Police Department in 2019, Heel held the position of Animal Control Officer with the Stoughton Police Department. 2015 to 2019, Heel was with the Stoughton Police Department as an Animal Control Officer. 2019, Josh Heel met Sandra Birchmore when she came to the shelter to adopt a cat. They became friends and later engaged in consensual relations once after working hours at the animal shelter. So this was 2019. How old was Sandra then? Was she an adult at that time? Maybe that's, I don't know. Anyways, so in 2020, I'm going to back up a second to that whole cat adoption thing. There's no records of a cat adoption for Sandra Birchmore, so it is possible. It is possible to believe that Josh may have exchanged a cat for physical relations, for favors from her, which is awful. All right, so 2020 Josh Heel became an Abington police officer. 2021, Josh Heel became a school resource officer in Abington. So he was an officer, and now he's a school resource officer. So he's basically a security guard for a school. He was interviewed twice by Stoughton investigators regarding the Birchmore case, first in December 2021 and again in February 2022. In December 2021, Stoughton investigators interviewed him as part of their inquiry into Sandra. Investigators for the Stoughton Police Department asked Heel during both interviews if he had engaged in certain behaviors with Birchmore, but he walked off the interview. Interesting. He didn't feel like a witness, rather, he felt like he was being interrogated. Okay, then. February 2022, Josh Heel agreed to another interview after Del Papa told Heel Police Department policies and procedures require him to cooperate. I think Del Papa might be the chief or lieutenant in Abington, where he is the officer. All right, so Del Papa told Heel Police Department policies and procedures require him to cooperate. Heel later agreed to sit for the second interview. During his second interview, Joshua Heel informed Stoughton investigators that Birchmore adopted a cat from the shelter around 2019 and would sometimes visit to see the dogs and cats. During these visits, according to interview transcripts, Birchmore would confide in Heel about her relationships with other Stoughton police officers, including sharing photos and videos. Heel testified that Birchmore appeared to need an outlet to vent during these interactions. So instead of being someone that was of a comfort to her, you engage in sexual relations with her and in exchange for a cat. And you don't tell on these officers, you're just an ear to lend when clearly this girl needed help and this was a cry for help. Sandra Birchmore told him Matthew Farwell used his phone to track her whereabouts and met her for relations at his residence and at a soccer field. The investigation into Joshua Heel found this. According to a report by Allen Consulting Services, which conducted an internal investigation for Abington, it concluded that there was sufficient credible evidence indicating Heel violated department rules regarding proper officer conduct. This was primarily due to his alleged lack of truthfulness, full cooperation, and openness during initial Stoughton investigation and subsequent interactions with Abington police. So, wait, it was concluded that there was sufficient credible evidence to indicate that he had violated department rules. Okay. These findings suggested that Heel could have potentially faced decertification as a police officer under Massachusetts' new police reform law, which is what McNamara was talking about, that they're able to do this now, to decertify police when they are unethical and they commit misconduct. Based on the findings, prior to Heel's resignation and scheduled ADP investigatory interview, the investigator finds that there is sufficient credible evidence that Heel, while serving as an ADP officer, violated ADP Rule and Regulation 4.01 conduct unbecoming. There is sufficient credible evidence that Heel was not truthful, fully cooperative, and/or forthcoming during the SPD administrative investigation, including in his responses to questions from Holmes and La Italian during interviews 1 and 2. Heel did not fully disclose or advise Del Papa with complete and thorough information specific to his personal interactions with Sandra Birchmore related to the SPD administrative investigation. Heel was not fully truthful when he disclosed to Chief Del Papa, he was the chief, and Sullivan that he was declining to be interviewed in a second subsequent interview by Holmes because Heel was concerned about information being released. So he was refusing to be interviewed, which means, um, which is bad because you're supposed to be cooperative. So he wasn't cooperating necessarily, and he was trying to avoid being interviewed because of information that might be released. Heel was not truthful with Del Papa and Sullivan, and he had at least one occasion that he had relations with her. At least one? Come on, you know if there were more than one. In the statement provided by Chief Del Papa, December 2021, Del Papa was informed by the Stoughton deputy chief that the officer Heel, who is now with Abington, was considered a material witness in an ongoing investigation. Specific details were not disclosed. Del Papa suggested placing the officer Heel on administrative leave, but was advised against it. The Stoughton deputy chief assured Del Papa that he would be notified if the officer's status in the investigation changed. September 22nd, 2022, Del Papa, who became Abington chief police in August 2021, received notification during the week the department completed its report that the officer was facing allegations. Since then, the Abington officer, Joshua Heel, has been put on administrative leave. Good. I don't know what's happened since, though, honestly. I don't know if Heel's still an officer or not. On September 20th, 2022, Stoughton Deputy Chief Holmes met Del Papa in person in Holbrook. At that time, Stoughton Deputy Chief Holmes provided Chief Del Papa with information specific to Josh Heel arising from the completed SPD investigation. Specifically, Holmes provided Del Papa with a package containing 2 transcripts of the recorded interviews that Heel participated in with SPD investigators and a cover letter from SPD Chief McNamara. Holmes then asked Del Papa if Heel was still working in the Abington schools as a school resource officer. Del Papa also recalled that Holmes said he did not think that he would want Heel around children, which Del Papa found concerning. Maybe he shouldn't be a school resource officer because he's probably trying to be inappropriate with girls there. All right, so February 2023, Officer Heel, who served as both a school resource officer and a comfort dog handler in Abington, resigned. Good. His leave stemmed from a report implicating several Stoughton police officers in inappropriate relationships with Sandra Birchmore. Starting when she was a teenager, Sandra Birchmore tragically took her own life. Okay, we know that. The Abington investigation concluded that Officer Joshua Heel was not a reliable witness and was less than forthcoming in his discussions with Stoughton and Abington officials. And that's all we have on him. So he resigned. I don't know what he's up to now, but he resigned. He was not a reliable witness either. So, these guys. And he was really not cooperative. All right, so now comes Robert Devine. Robert Devine was their bosses, so he's more culpable, I think. All right, so Robert C. Devine quickly climbed the ranks of the Stoughton Police Department after becoming a patrolman in 1999. He served as a school resource officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and an executive officer. Here's his career. He joined in 1999 for the Stoughton Police Department. 2001 to 04, Devine served as a school resource officer. Then he was ordered in 2002 to run the Explorers program by the former chief, Kachopa. He was served as sergeant, lieutenant, executive officer. He just climbed up the ranks. Devine received an award for his work in investigating corruption within his own department. What? Devine served as the acting chief for 2 months when Shastani was at FBI training, the chief, the new chief, I guess, May 13th, or during that time, May 13th, or 2013, Divine, who was appointed, Divine was appointed to the deputy police. So he's now deputy chief. And he, the other officers, the Farwell brothers, report to him, not Joshua Heel, but, well, maybe. I don't know who Joshua Heel reports to, but so I take that back. I can't be sure. But I know that the Farwell brothers are his responsibility. All right, so April 18, 2011, FBI Director Robert Mueller flew Devine to Nashville to present him with an award for his work in investigating corruption within his own department. He then served as the department's spokesperson and deputy chief. These guys really know how to work the system and make it work for them. They're very charming and outgoing, and they can just make the world think that they're good people, as evidenced by that. In 2012, when Shastani was at FBI training, Devine served as the acting chief for 2 months. In May 2013, Devine, who was appointed to the was appointed. Did I read all of that already? I don't remember. Okay. I feel like I'm repeating myself. Stoughton Police Explorers Program. The program that first introduced Birchmore to the officers is one of many similar chapters at police agencies across the country. Created by the Boy Scouts of America decades ago, law enforcement explorer posts are intended to help teenagers and young adults learn about policing. Robert C. Devine, 51, then a deputy chief in Stoughton, led the department's youth program since early 2000, the Stoughton Police Explorers Program. In 2010, Robert Devine brought in former explorers Matthew Farwell and William as guest instructors. Some of this is repetitive, so I apologize. That's the same year. So both of the brothers were in their mid-20s when they would go on to become police officers. It was that same year, 2010, where Sandra Birchmore tried to join the Youth Explorers program when she was 13, but put on a standby list for the program. She became a member in 2011, and that is when Sandra first met Robert Devine and officers Matt and William Farwell. All right, so an extramarital affair for Robert Devine. In 2013, Devine began to have an extramarital affair with a woman named Tiffany Overstreet. March 10th, 2014, Deputy Police Chief Robert Devine is reading at here there's a link to where him and some other officers were reading at the library, reading children's books to kids. I think he was reading a Dr. Seuss book. Weird. All right, so October of 2014 obtained restraining order against Overstreet when he claimed that he and his wife, who is also a cop in a different town, were receiving threatening messages from Overstreet, the woman that he was having an affair with. Allegedly, Overstreet sent flowers to his wife November of 2014. Overstreet sent naked pictures of herself and Devine to his coworkers and their spouses. That's interesting. December 18th, 2014, Easton police raided Overstreet's home in Easton in order to seize her computers to prove that she was the one sending the naked pictures. Overstreet was taken into custody by state police and charged with 3 counts of violating harassment prevention orders that were filed against her by Devine and his wife, and was released on personal recognizance. Does anybody think that maybe, just maybe, Robert Devine was using the law as a weapon against this woman because he didn't want her around, and maybe she was like, "No, buddy, you ain't getting rid of me so easy"? I don't know. He might have been abusing his power to get a restraining order, is what I'm saying. Like it might not have constituted, whatever she did might not have constituted a restraining order, but because he's connected and he doesn't want her talking to his wife, he could get a restraining order against her. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just using the system for his benefit. All right. So Overstreet was taken into custody, charges on 3 counts. All right. So the case has been transferred to Dedham District Court. 5 days after her arrest, Overstreet reported a break-in in her Easton apartment when Easton police responded that they found no sign of forced entry, according to police, but her apartment was in disarray. Dresser drawers were pulled out, couch cushions were thrown on the floor. During investigation, it was discovered that Devine continued to meet up with Overstreet for relations. He claimed that he was only doing so in order to save her life because she would commit self-deletion if he had continued to plow on ahead without her, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so August 2015, Robert Devine is featured in some magazine. In 2015, he was paid, so this was his salary in 2015, $125,000 a year. Also in 2015, he had an internal affairs investigation ordered by the chief to look into Devine's actions and the other officers in the program. July 2015, Devine received a 60-day unpaid suspension after an internal affairs investigation found that he improperly ordered an investigation into Overstreet using department resources and technology. Well, that's a reason to get your to get decertified as an officer of the law, because you're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be looking anybody up unless it's for an investigation. They were talking about, I remember what show I was listening to. I listen to so many, I love YouTube, other YouTube creators, and I try to obtain or soak in as much of other content as I can, especially about these cases. But there was somebody talking about FBI, and how you, like in the FBI, you can't even go into a record without a case number. So you can't even be like, there's no way you could be looking through records unless you actually have a case number to tie it to. And all the records are logged and it's all there, clear as day, who was on what records. It's a decent log that everybody has to abide by, and that's their policy. Whereas Canton police, Stoughton police, they don't do that apparently. All right, so the internal investigations started in 2015. July 2015, Devine received the unpaid suspension because he looked into Overstreet using department resources and technology. That's a big no-no. Stoughton Chief Paul Shastani stated that adjustments have been made to the role of 42-year-old Devine, who admitted to state police that he had been involved in a several-month-long affair with Tiffany Overstreet, 30, from Easton, which ultimately turned sour. At that time, Devine served as the deputy or second in command in Stoughton and acts as the chief when Shastani is absent. The matter has led Shastani to take on some of Devine's work and prompted at least one police expert to question whether Devine should stay in the position, but Shastani stood by the deputy chief, saying Devine is the victim. Oh, please, in this case, and terming the situation a personal matter. And that's the problem. I mean, I get you're innocent until proven guilty, but they did you're guilty. They did the investigation into the text messages. You're guilty. All right, February 12th, 2016, Devine was demoted by town manager Michael Hartman, who announced his decision in a brief press release. Devine reached an agreement with Hartman to return to the lowest rank within the department. Due to his decision in the case by Michael Hartman was one of the reasons Chief Shastani announced that he planned to retire in April 2016. He believed the town manager has left him out of many department decisions. The police chief Shastani pushed for Devine's termination after he said he took a long look at the documents and reports related to the case, but Shastani said he found out an agreement was reached an hour and 25 minutes before an executive session. A custodian hand-delivered Shastani a letter written by Hartman announcing his decision. Investigation into Sandra Birchmore's loss of life. Internal investigators found Facebook messages between Birchmore and Devine during which he asked for physical acts and discussed locations to meet. Devine communicated with Birchmore on Facebook using the alias Marty Riggs, a police officer from Lethal Weapon. Ugh. Devine had a physical relationship with Sandra Birchmore while she was still a member of the Explorers program, but by 2020 he was having full-fledged encounters with her at various locations, including inside his Stoughton PD patrol car. Defendant Devine's relationship with Ms. Birchmore, appears to have been ongoing at the time of her homicide. Yikes. All right, so court records, details. Documents detailed a clandestine relationship between Devine and Overstreet that started in fall 2013 and eventually reached both his family and the department. By summer 2014, Devine wanted to end their relationship and began receiving harassing and threatening messages that, according to what he told investigators. Devine contacted state police in November after an email containing graphic photos of him and Overstreet was sent to his police co-workers and their spouses. The police report states, wow, where'd she get all those numbers or emails, or how did she do that? That's crazy. Devine's wife is a police officer in a different community. I wonder what she's got to say about his philandering. The meetings, according to the report, came after Overstreet had threatened to take her own life if Devine abandoned her. Court records show that a week before her arrest on December 11th, Devine and his wife requested the court immediately rescind the harassment prevention orders against Overstreet. No, he is no longer an officer. He was decertified. It doesn't say here, but she said it in the conference or the press conference that all three of them were decertified. It just doesn't say where. There is a whole file. I don't want to read it all, but there is a file within the case file here of the whole investigation for the arrest report of Tiffany Overstreet and the investigation into Divine. So there's some interesting stuff that might be in here, like they said that they were receiving phone calls and all this stuff. Where was it? Mm, 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 mm. I don't know. There were comments about how his Robert Divine's email, he was saying that somehow his email got hacked, and I can't find it. He said somewhere in the report that his email got hacked and everything in his sent folder got deleted. Like all of his past emails got deleted just right before this interview with police. So that is very suspicious. I can't, and his passwords, he said his passwords changed. He said his Google account password had changed without his knowledge. And yeah, so I think that he's playing some games here. I can't remember where it was. But anyways, just kind of some interesting details about these gentlemen. So Robert Devine had Sandra Birchmore and this Lisa Overstreet on the side, and he had a wife at home, and love to see these guys go to prison for what they did. Or I don't know either um at what time did the relationships start with, you like my background, Nicole? Um, at what time did the relationship start, him and Divine and Sandra? If she started in like 2013 with the Farwell brothers, who who started first? I wonder. Not that I care, but I just wonder like how did it I just wonder how these like predators all like work together and they're like, "Hey, you know what? I can get this girl to do me in the back of my squad car. You want to bet me $5?" Like, is that how they're talking to one another? Or like, I don't get it. And at what point is it like okay that they can talk about that they are doing this illegal and disgusting thing to a minor with one another? They're, how are they able to just be okay with the fact that they're all doing this? It just like at what point is one of them not saying like, "Hey guys, maybe we shouldn't do this"? Or how do they all congregate and just say like, "Yeah, we can all try to abuse our power and manipulate young children"? I don't know. I don't know what kind of person it. There was something that I read. There was like a really good quote. I can't remember what it was exactly. It was like somebody posted a picture on something, probably Twitter, and it was like it's not that absolute power corrupts people. That that saying like absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's that people positions like government positions, law enforcement, those are positions of power, and it just happens to, I mean, it attracts good people who want to do good, but it also attracts the people that want the power. So that's the problem. And the people with the power can cover things up and get away with things that the people without the power can't do. And that's the problem. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that before I ramble on too much more. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next time, we will look more into the investigation of Sandra's death and um, look through the police reports and whatnots and read through that and try to piece things together by what we read. So, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out. I would appreciate that so much. Thank you guys for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.